Okay, thank you, everyone. Welcome to the second session of our Smart series with Ideal, Sidara, and Schneider Electric. Yesterday, we spoke about the journey of Smart for 150 Holborn, but today we're going to do a deeper dive into those operations and day two and what it actually means to deliver a smart building long after the PC dates. So I'm Lisa Kenny. I'm the head of client experience for Sidara. So Sidara is was the owner, the developer, the landlord and tenant at 150 Holborn. And I helped to join up the operations in use between the brands. We've got 7 brands in 150 Holborn, and all built environment specialists, whether it's architecture, engineering, systems analysts, structural engineers. So it's really about understanding how the building can come together culturally and as one. So first of all, I'll ask you all to introduce yourselves, please.
Hi, I'm Dan Cope. I'm the head of technology in the UK for Sidara, and I've worked on the 150 Holborn project since 2018. So I was the consultant, client, operator, and landlord. So I've got each a hat basically on during this whole process.
Hi, I'm Moto Shakori. I'm the CEO of Ideal, and my company is responsible for all of the technology that links everything together from an operational technology point of view at 150 Holborn.
My name's Andy Waters. I work for Schneider Electric. So I'm a smart building consultant. And basically my role is to essentially take clients' ambitions and visions with regards to smart building technology and interpret that and provide solutions against those visions and ambitions.
Okay, thank you, gents. So I'll probably start with you, Dan, as head of technology. What does it mean to deliver a smart building?
Well, it takes a lot of time, and to get you got to get the foundations correct and right in the first place. So through the whole design process, as I think we touched on yesterday, it was very challenging. We have a lot of data points across the building. We're capturing all that information, and basically, to create one of the smartest buildings in the world, we need technology partners with us to be able to bring our vision to reality. So we built this strong relationship with Schneider and Ideal from the project outset. Like through Ideal, we met them through the contractor, and Schneider, we knew we needed a technology vendor way back in the design phase. So that's how we partnered with Schneider. And then as the building got delivered, basically the partners that we had during the delivery phase, they typically would walk away from the project. They'll give you a standard traditional service model. But with us, we actually had to keep these on board because the data being collected from the building, these guys are the ones that can help us actually bring context to it and actually make a difference and change and evolve over year on year. So the whole process of the industry is changing a little bit, and our building is no different.
Okay, so you're talking about, the model that's having to be created to deliver a smart building, but what is it that keeps you having Schneider and Ideal with us in that day two ongoing now, and why them?
So like I just mentioned, I think with Ideal and Schneider, we have a lot of data sets being booked. We have over 60,000 data points being generated every 5 minutes. So it's a lot of data that is being given to us from our software platforms and our hardware platforms that Schneider and Ideal deliver. Bringing that data to life and actually making a difference for the end users and the users of the building is critical. And it takes all of our heads together to be able to bring value to that. Not one person, not one company can actually do that. You have to work together collaboratively, a bit like our business runs. And the data, the technology has to work collaboratively. And we all have a stake in that. because we're pulling in the same direction, we are getting the most value out of our product. And basically our business owners, they need to get their value back from the building. To do that, we have to evolve the building and make it better year on year, make it more energy efficient, make it better for our users. These guys are critical in that.
So Mo, I'll come to you. From your perspective, what has it meant to deliver Smart at 150 and this ongoing partnership that you have with Sidara?
So first of all, I think the challenge here for Sidara was actually bringing 7 of their companies in the UK together under one roof. So that was a challenge in the first place, because I think in the discussions that we've had over the last couple of years, they didn't really want to come together.
They didn't, no.
So we already had a challenge there to get those companies together. And then the other point as well is the partnership has grown, but it grew out for us out of having a relationship with a construction organization and then actually understanding what the end user wanted. So we actually managed to, it's actually a Cisco network that we use in this building. And what we actually did was we got the fit out network and the what we call a shell and core network, and we crunched them together, and that's what connected everything together. Now I'm going to give you a quick story what that might mean. Okay, so the meeting rooms, and any of you can come to 150, by the way, anytime you like, because we're happy to show you around, because we do the 150 experience.
150holborn.com, you can book a building tour.
The meeting rooms are the best meeting rooms I have ever experienced in London, and probably, and they might be the best meeting rooms you would ever experience. And I'd be interested to know some better ones. But just to give you some examples of a really good meeting room experience, if the meeting's about to end, maybe like 15 minutes before the meeting was going to end, we've all had that experience where someone whacks on the window and says, "Come on, get out of the meeting room. The meeting's going to end now." Yeah, we've all had that. Yeah, and we all rush around, try and do our actions and finish up. Well, it's programmed here because you connect everything together, because you're connecting the lighting to the controllers. You're actually connecting the HVAC systems into those meeting rooms as well. It's all connected together. You can pump in air into those rooms, so you can clear that room out if you had 10 people and you're only going to have 2 people in that room. So the meeting room behavior is much better. And of course, that's really important post-COVID, because we all have meeting rooms use. There's a lot more I think buildings now are like, what, a third desk, a third meeting rooms, and a third communal space. And you've got that at 150, and you can't take advantage of that, and you can't be a data-driven organization or building unless you connect it all together. From our point of view, the operation of that has been a challenge, because they've pushed us to be a better company, because we've had to extend our managed service contract and the capabilities of that. And we've actually had to even connect right up to the endpoint, our managed services, so that our engineers know whether it's the network that's at fault or whether it's the endpoint that's at fault. Of course, it's always the endpoint and never the network, of course. But we've had to stretch ourselves, and the operation of the meeting, operation of the building is really important.
Okay, from your perspective, Andy, Schneider's perspective?
Yeah, no, I'm really echoing Mo's points there. I think one of the biggest things that we are taking away from the relationship is actually learning how people are using buildings. I think, as a technology vendor in sort of multiple different disciplines, it's super important that we are, I guess, the experts when we're talking to our end users, talking to our clients, and giving that advice. And I suppose being able to, and taking that analogy that Mo spoke about with regards to the meeting rooms, that as a prime example of how we're learning how people are using space, what people's wants are, what people's needs are, and we can translate that to our end users and our clients as well. So I think, that's probably one of the biggest things that we are taking away from it, for sure.
Really interesting. So, Dan, I'll probably come to you. What have you seen as the biggest challenges in terms of day 2 operations? You've got this great alliance. We've got Schneider and Ideal on board. But in day 2, from your perspective, what are you saying are the biggest challenges in operation?
I think with a smart building, I've heard it a few times about the definition of a smart building. And when you have occupiers moving into it, as you mentioned, Mo, that we have 7 different companies that we have to adhere to, different use cases, different clients. Everyone hears the word smart building and expects it to come in and do all this crazy stuff, all the stuff you see in the future that, like pizzas, like you cook a pizza in a microwave, it'll expand. But it's not, that's not reality. The reality is that a smart building will just get better and better and better over time. So actually trying to educate the users to say, we need to first understand naturally how you operate and work in a building to then make the big differences that you're expecting, because we don't know from day one what they want. So you have to build it up over time. So patience is a big factor in this. Also, it allows us and our technology partners to really understand what's happening. Once we understand what's happening, we can actually find out the changes that make the biggest difference first, and the easiest ones, and the complexities and the costs. So that's been a big challenge, a big education, big learning piece for us and our users. But with that, over time, it's slowly but surely getting there. We have all our great AV equipment across the building, which basically can tell a story. It's just having the content on there that tells the right story for what this building does. As soon as you lift up the bonnet or the hood of the building, you'll see underneath. But how do you relay that to the masses?
So internal communication's key there.
100%. And the thing is, we're still learning and still figuring out what exactly they want to see now, and we'll roadmap that, and what they want to see next year and the year after will be different. It's just human nature.
Yeah, and it will evolve over time, I'm certain.
100%. And obviously what we've done here is created a living lab.
Yep.
So
what is a living lab?
So it's about getting that foundation right and actually trialing things that data is telling you, see how the users react, see how the energy impacts are, and try and reach that good compromise between user experience and energy efficiency. And you can do that logically. You don't need to buy loads of sensors if you've already got your foundation correct. If you've got the backbone correct, you can tweak it behind a computer. It's more cost effective, it's easier to do, and it's easier to make a difference.
Andy, what are you doing in terms of the living lab approach?
Yeah, so I think I guess in this day 2 phase of the building, it's really important that I guess similarly to my previous answer around learning, it's really learning how the technology is being used, adapting, changing the use case to suit you guys as the end user. We're talking about the application and how we can change and adapt and develop that. We're talking around to get collectively putting R&D funds into the building and work out how we can improve the technology further, not just for the building, but for us as a business as well. So it's really a collaboration approach to, I guess, working, really close together. Yeah.
Mo, anything from you on the living lab approach?
The learning's really important. I think it's okay. So forgive me if I'm taking a step too far, but here's a good example. It's actually a bad story, but it actually turned into a good story. Okay, and I always like stories. Yeah, we can talk about improvements and smart buildings, but really it's about understanding what those stories might be. So there's a lot of the buildings you see in London have electric blinds. Okay, so they have these electric blinds and they follow the sun. They come down when the sun shines and they go up, obviously, when the sun's not there. And it's a really good, efficient way of making sure that the temperature is regulated. Now, I believe that they were value engineered out. That's a word that gets used a lot in buildings, the word value engineer or VE, and they were value engineered out. But we've found through the use of the data that 35% more energy is being spent in those areas with air conditioning. Now, you can use that to your advantage now. You can say, right, we can do a return on investment over the next 5 years, 10 years, whatever it might be, to make a decision. That is a decision made by data out of a smart building because you connected everything together to be able to make those decisions. You've got the same in the meeting rooms. You can prove that the meeting rooms are 20% more efficient than the average meeting room because they shut down when that meeting's not happened. Loads of us have walked into meeting rooms where they say there's a meeting and that meeting's not going on, or the meeting room finishes, the meeting finishes early and everyone walks out and that room stays on. Well, it doesn't here. It shuts down. And you've actually we could show you a graph which shows you how much energy you've actually saved in that meeting room over that month. And of course, over the year, that's a lot. Well, of course, as well, the data's seasonal. The seasonal data is really interesting as well. So it's those stories that make a real difference. What was it? This building came up post-COVID, didn't it? And post-COVID, not that many people came back to work, and then it started to pick up. The restaurant on the top floor, but through the sensor technology that they've got, they decided and made a data-driven decision to open that restaurant. Okay, so it's data-driven decisions all the time, and they are learning all the time. So I always like to talk about the stories.
Stories are important. Human stories, very important. Dan, I'll probably ask you now around kind of the FM model that's having to be applied in terms of 150 Holborn and its smart credentials. How has the FM model and support had to adapt to support the smart building?
It's changed. So when we started with this building, the operations of it, not many FMs have or operate these types of buildings yet because they just don't exist. So how can you support something you haven't supported before? So when we took out the traditional style contracts, all based off SFG 20 and looking at general PPMs, reactive maintenance, the FMs are now having to learn new systems, have to adapt to the building, giving them the problems rather than them just waiting for somebody to complain about something. So using like a product that from Ideal is actually able to determine when something goes offline on the network. And we have over 9,000 things connected to our network, from sensors to BMS panels to controllers. They can detect it first before anybody's in the building, and it could be 1 o'clock in the morning, a ticket is generated in our system. Our FM can get onto it as quick as possible. In terms of mechanical equipment as well, we're hoping to move to more condition-based maintenance. We still have our PPMs in place, but because we're building up this data picture of our mechanical systems, the mechanical systems will know when they need to be serviced based on the seasonal, based on how much it's been used. And it can almost call home, let's say, to get that kind of maintenance.
So it starts to build up its own intelligence.
Yeah.
From those
that
problems.
takes time because it's almost like learning the alphabet. The building is learning a language. Once the building understands that, it can then start to ask the right questions back to the people operating it.
So, go on,
just going to echo that point there as well. That we really had to adapt. Schneider had to adapt with essentially that our entire operation model for looking after 150 Holborn. And I think there was a time sort of post completion that I guess we can call it like a teething time, where essentially we looked at the systems that were deployed. We had building analytics, we had workplace analytics, there's a CAFM system that was deployed, and it was that sort of, I guess, teething process was understanding how those technologies were being used, underused specifically, and also looking at the data that was coming back into those systems and determining whether it was correct, whether it was accurate data, whether it was usable. And I think that was something that we certainly learned. And when we started to figure that out and understand it, that's when I think we had to work together with Dan and Ideal to come up with a different solution where, I guess, instead of just passing these systems, which are smart technology systems, and saying that's going to look after your building for you, we did have to actually have some intervention, where we say, right, let's actually help you guys learn these systems. Let's go through this teething process together. And and I think that was really one of the challenges and lessons learned that we had in that sort of early post completion.
So you're literally learning your own building and implementation real time.
Well, we're changing our operating model. And that's the thing. If you want to have a truly smart building, you've got to change, because this is new. This is, one of the smartest, if not the smartest building in London. So you have to, our businesses, it's easier for my business, it's a lot smaller than Schneider. But we've had to change our operating model. And I know that they've had those challenges too.
Okay, Dan, probably the crux question. So what is next for 150 Holborn in your world?
So it's this journey that we're on. So we've been on a journey since 2018 or 2015, I think, since they acquired the site. But now we're at a stage where we have all this data being generated. It's been open for 18 months. And now born out of this building has been our actual digital service, digital brand or business, Para, which are here on the stand, I think S07. Yeah. And that is actually a digital twin in operation, let's say. So it's actually bringing data, contextualizing it, and applying AI to help us make better informed decisions, and using data that would never typically work together or work in separate silos. It's actually bringing that together and giving you a real genuine output about what difference that's going to make, how much money it's going to save you, how much energy it's going to save you. Potentially, we're going to start looking at user well-being and looking at how it affects well-being by making that change. But having that data into that kind of platform and being able to understand that and help us make our decisions moving forward. And it's almost created this building has created a new business division from a digital point of view.
Brilliant. Andy?
Yeah, just to add to that, I think one of the really, I guess, exciting and important things about 150 Holborn is that the foundation is there for all of those ideas. I see Sidara doing great things with the Sidara Academy.
Yep, Sidara Foundation.
Yeah, bringing in, higher education into the building and to research and understand how people are using spaces. And I think as well, that was really, I guess, a credit to you guys as in that design period of making sure that foundation was there. And that's not just Schneider as well. I think, Ideal with the converged network, that entire sort of foundation from a network perspective is super, super critical. So I think that's all of those ideas are amazing. And we can see, going out there and seeing all these different technologies, the foundation is there and ready. And I think that's really cool.
AI is quite interesting, isn't it? I mean, if we let AI take over all our buildings, they'd all be shut on a Friday, wouldn't they? Because they'd be very inefficient. So it's quite interesting. It's going to be very interesting over the next few years.
And I think to finally touch on what we're doing moving forward is with all these, going back to the whole collaboration part, this type of building isn't dependent on one product or one platform. I'm sure you go out there, you see so many different products. How do you know what fits with what? And I'll be honest, there isn't a single answer for that at the moment. Like in our building, we use a plan on our WMS with Schneider's systems, with Ideal, with our own Para business, with other software providers. It all has to work together to be able to get them outputs. And that's where we're going, basically.
No, that's great. Thank you, all three of you. Any questions from anyone? Yeah.
Thank you. To double click on the on the last statement and on something that was going through the speech, through the discussion, you mentioned, Dan, you mentioned a critical thing that you need to work with the customer to understand what they want to achieve. That's correct. That's how it works. It's not very scalable, but as you keep doing projects like this, you should start seeing the pattern, seeing the trend, understand what will be the generic value-added propositions, so you can approach any customer and say, smart buildings will solve A, B, and C for you. pretty much guaranteed. You have this problem pretty much guaranteed that the smart buildings will solve that. Yes, of course, you'll need to dig into details and to understand other things that the customer wants to address with the smart buildings. But in your opinion, what trends start shaping up and what issues are pretty much guaranteed to be solvable by smart buildings?
So in my opinion, I think something we're determining already is the way the building was designed and the way the space was fitted out. We've almost we've over-designed our meeting spaces so they're too big. You looking at that data, we need more meeting rooms, but we need them smaller. But when you're designing something back in 2018,
COVID.
during COVID, everyone's like, oh, let's design the biggest meeting rooms just in case. But now, actually looking at that data, something like that, you can actually tailor that back and then make it fit for the users that are using that building. Other areas could be things like the general value engineering process that goes through main contractors. There are things that potentially have been value engineered up by the main contractor that would actually add benefit to us now, such as blinds, things like that. But at the time, we were unable to measure that to generate that return of investment. So, but looking at that, we can model that now, bring it back to management, and actually give them an easy decision in terms of when they'll make their money back.
I think this might sound a little bit silly, but I think one of the biggest trends in smart building is change. It's not the speed of change of technology, but I think what I'm trying to refer to is in that day 2 phase, it's preparing the end user for change in the sense that, we had no idea as a vendor just how much, change Sidara is going to have to go through with regards to, and some of it is just logic, right? It could be a change in the BMS, it could be a change in the lighting system, but it's changing to suit. You've got 7 different tenants in that building,
7 different brands and 7 different cultures.
Exactly. So, it's having to take on board, I guess, everyone's needs and wants and being able to translate that and create, I guess, standard practice. So I think what I'm trying to say is being able to prepare your clients or your end users for change in day 2 is super, super critical.
Okay.
I think also what's interesting is that the culture of the construction industry is very much to build up packages of work and then they get passed down, and they're good companies, don't get me wrong, they're good companies, but that culture is quite tricky because you've got an end user client who wants this building, this smart building. All of you might have that situation, and then it all goes through the construction industry, and then you end up with something slightly different because that's just the way it works. And I would recommend that anyone or any organization that wants to get to where these guys have got, that they bring in the selected partners early. Yes, and they tell the construction companies what they want. They don't let the construction companies make the decisions for them.
Cool. Any other questions?
Thank you. Really interesting point about scalability. Hadn't thought about that before in terms of your client relationships. This is a question again about client relationships. Something that came from you, Andy, is what you've all learned in this process, I guess, is learning what your clients want is really, really important. And at the moment, we're in a phase of market discovery, right? So the scalability is maybe not so important. It's about finding those trends, about making those relationships, about prepping them for the day 2, as you said. But how do you kind of set them up for that? Because a lot of people, I guess, will be coming to you not knowing exactly what they want and not exactly knowing what that relationship is going to be looking like in stage 7, as opposed to even in stage 0, right, of your works. So what are your techniques for prepping them to get ready for that? How do you like to engage with them? And what do you find keeps you closest to your clients, keeps you most trusted with your clients? And then how do you transition them from this design role into this sort of maintenance and evolution role later on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think we've probably had to adapt our attitude, and throughout the entire sort of build up of the smart buildings world. And the reason I say that is, I guess Schneider, as big as we are, and we've got so many different technology systems that we use and solutions, I guess we can almost be guilty of saying that we could do everything. And I'm sure at one stage we probably said that to Dan. And we've had to really change that, right? So we don't want to go into these conversations saying we can do absolutely everything for you and we can be that single source. What we need to do is actually take a step back and say, what are your ambitions? What are your KPIs? What are your metrics and your visions for the next, not 26 years or 25 years to 2050, but beyond that, and really shaping that sort of conversation that way. I think that's super critical. And especially in those early stages, you talk about the Reba stages, defining that ambition in that stage 0, stage 1 is so critical. And it's not necessarily pitching any sort of technology in that sense. It's just saying, right, what do you want to be able to achieve in the next 60, 70 years?
Okay. Any final words? We've literally got a minute left. No. Okay, thank you all for your time. As gents will be here if you want to have a separate conversation with them. But yeah, if you want to book a building tour, 150holborn.com. Thank you.